Now in the final module of my first year studying my MA, I have been working on my project for around 8 months. Over this time my approach has developed and the work has switched directions. However, my aims remain the same, to create the first photographic retelling of the merry tales of the madmen of Gotham. To recap, I have lived next to the South Nottinghamshire village of Gotham all my life, and have always been aware of its 12th century folklore. Nearly 1,000 years ago, King John aimed to reroute his King's Highway through the village. The villagers opposed this idea, so faked madness, a condition believed to be contagious at the time. Through multiple conspiracies and acts of supposed insanity, the villagers were deemed mad and prevailed in preventing the expansion of the highway. These stories have been told through plays and books, and retold through the generations. Today, I aim to capture the locations where these tales supposedly took place, and retell these stories through the medium of photography, while also examining the mix of truth and fiction. I have spoken consistently about achieving a sense of mystery and perhaps even surrealism through this project, often shooting in the night or in mist and snow to provide atmosphere. I use flash to accentuate aspects of the image, but also push the mood of the image further into a place of intrigue. I hope that this approach leads me onto a style that becomes my own. Photography is the perfect medium for this approach. Susan Sontag states that surrealism lies at the heart of the photographic enterprise, in the very creation of a duplicate world, of a reality in the second degree, narrower but more dramatic than the one perceived by natural vision. Furthermore, I'm interested in capitalizing on our shared untrustworthiness of the photographic ability to show truth. John Sakowski discussed this when he said that photos are fantasies taken from the real world, while Michael Kohler states, photographs can neither lie nor tell the truth. I am attempting to further this blurriness between truth and fiction within my work. My inspiration for this project continues to arrive in various forms, from the cinematic to written text, and of course, the photographic image. Starting with cinema, the films of Federico Fellini provide great inspiration for my work. Starting out in the Italian neo-realist movement, working with Roberto Rossellini, Fellini understood how to tell stories true to life. As he developed his own career, his stories grew to mix this with the surreal, and what became the Fellini-esque. Martin Scorsese describes Fellini as cinema's virtuoso, stating, Fellini was a stylist and a fabulist, a magician and a teller of tales, but the grounding in lived experience and in ethics he received from Rossellini was crucial to the spirit of his pictures. Fellini's ability to create pictures of the surreal, yet retain a level of reality and human spirit, is something I look up to in this project. Moving to literature, books that capture a grand sense of history come as inspiration to me while creating this work. Perhaps no book combines the human condition with the endless motions of history more effectively than Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. This combination of humanity and the passing of time applies now to the stories of the Gotham tales told nearly 1,000 years ago. Stories interpreted and reinterpreted, each time further incorporating an element of the real. Even the least visual medium of all, music, can elicit thoughts and direction in my work process. The swirling melodies of Tchaikovsky or the dramatic heights of Beethoven. When we examine the way a symphony is structured, it is easy to compare this to the construction of a photo sequence. It is no coincidence, then, that we often refer to the pace or rhythm of a photo sequence. Double-page spreads comparable to fortissimo, the introduction of blank space around an image the same as sudden staccato. This is at least how I take inspiration from music into my own work. Of course I take inspiration from my own medium of photography, of which my understanding grows every day while studying for this master's degree. I get a great insight into making work through that of photographers such as Alice Tomlinson and Tito Meraz, two photographers working today who have published series carrying similar themes to my own. Through these respective projects, they also realised a style of their own, something I hope to achieve. Thomas Joshua Cooper continues to be an inspiration to me, famous for documenting what he calls the edges of the world, spending large amounts of time researching locations for his images, stating, I cannot approach the problem of trying to make things without a project in mind. His locations are often abstracted and unidentifiable. This approach is comparable to my own. All my imagery captured in Gotham, but never giving too much context of exact location within the frame. Of course, work that differs greatly thematically to my own can still offer inspiration visually. I've often credited Weegee as the first to deliberately use harsh flash. His images explode with energy and chaos. This is only right given the subject matter. Weegee stated, the same camera that photographs a murder scene can photograph a beautiful society affair at a big hotel. Many others have documented the night through photography. Herbert Mason's iconic nighttime shots of the London Blitz required incredible technical ability, while George Shiras had perfected the use of flash as early as 1890. His nighttime wildlife imagery remains some of the greatest nighttime and flash photography ever created. All of these photographers who choose to work in night are great examples of how this potentially worst period to create work can offer incredibly rewarding results. It is also interesting to consider that all these images are captured at the time of least light, a time when our eyes are typically unable to see these scenes. Theorist Ossip Brick famously discussed this ability of the camera, saying, "The task of cinema and of the camera is not to imitate the human eye, but to see and record what the human eye does not normally see." I, and all these photographers who work at night, deliberately set out to create imagery that is not possible to see in the real world. Only through the photographic image, made possible by the camera, can we visualize these midnight scenes. I believe it is incredibly important that work be informed by all mediums and aspects of life. This belief was often discussed by classical composer Leonard Bernstein, stating the benefits of absorbing the great works of all mediums. My work will always inherit aspects of interest from everything I see and do. Throughout the process of creating this work, I have asked for feedback from professionals and peers. Recently I showed the work to photographer John Angerson, his work now on screen, to discuss how I could incorporate existing media into my work. John is the perfect person to ask how to achieve this, having successfully done so in his own work. I hope to incorporate maps or some of the original drawings into my work somehow. Looking at John's work, particularly the book English Journey, helps me see how this could be possible. Thinking forward to the future, I've also been in contact with editors for advice on ways to present this body of work. Krishna Sath, former photo editor of The Telegraph, now director of photography for Stella, advised me on how to take the work forward. Krishna believes personal projects to be the best representation of a photographer. This resonates well with me, as I have long held this belief too. Krishna helped me to work on the potential sequencing of the project, and has given me lots to think about moving forwards. I have created demo layouts of my work in book format, to start to understand how the project can take shape moving forward. Understanding sequencing is incredibly important to me and will be key later in the project when I come to organise the work I've created over what will then be a year. Krauker states that the way sequencing plays with the pieces of disjointed nature is reminiscent of dreams in which the fragments of daily life become jumbled. Sequencing furthers photography's storytelling ability. Images presented alone or together on a page can now interact with each other in the viewer's mind, thus creating new stories. This process is much like the passing on of Goten tales through the generations, the endless game of Chinese whispers where each individual is unknowingly adding their own spin each time a story is told. I am thinking forward to how the project can be presented. I am aiming to publish a photo book of the work. Books like The House of the Seven Women by Tito Meraz are big inspirations to me. Meraz has previously discussed why he works with photography, stating, "I like the surprise, the unpredictable, the freedom to create through inspirations and personal experiences, being almost moved by the light and the atmosphere itself." Night Procession by Stephen Gill also has a feel I hope to achieve, the sense of mystery extending throughout the book. Gill says, "I found photography was the perfect way to articulate myself. Coupled with my interest in birds and animals, I learned to work and articulate without words." Much like myself, Gill uses photography to explore interests, his being wildlife, mine being local history. I have been in contact with publisher Another Place to see if they would be interested in the work. Their focus on place is one we share, and I feel my project would fit well within their library. Dewey Lewis is another publisher I look at as a potential future publisher of the work, placing storytelling at the heart of their books. I admire their work with both established and up-and-coming photographers. It would be a great achievement to create a book with them. For me, having my project published as a book would push my career forward. My photographic approach would then have a reference for editors and publications to see. I would be represented by this project, my research, photographic ability, and my interest in history all on show in one piece. Through research, expansion of my work, and the feedback of peers and professionals, I have created a body of work that is nearly ready to move to a stage of sequencing and bookmaking. I have aimed to position my work in a place of contemporary published photography with the hope to create my first book. Many of the photographers I have discussed in this presentation discovered their style and place in the industry through the realization of a project. I hope to do the same.